Welcome to this lecture on cyanobacteria. In this particular lecture, I shall be covering the origin, the different types of cyanobacteria, and also their classification, and maybe I shall be discussing some aspects of cell structure. The name cyanobacteria indicates that it is a bacteria which is photosynthetic in nature, so it is definitely prokaryotic in nature. This particular organism is not having a true nucleus with a nuclear membrane. And at the same time, two very important characteristics are absent in this particular organism. One is, it is without any locomotory organelle or flagella, and at the same time, it is without any proper sexual reproduction. This particular organism is actually cosmopolitan in their habitat. They can grow in different set of habitat starting from aquatic to terrestrial. It can grow in the barren rocks. As you can see, Rivularia growing as green patches in different parts of a barren rock. At the same time, it can grow in lotic or flowing water ecosystem and lentic or lake system. And sometimes when it is growing on a stagnant water body, it is growing at such a rate that it will cause water bloom. And that means it will utilize all the oxygen, and as a result of which the dissolved oxygen goes down. And so it is not good for other aquatic organisms. Sometimes it can grow in the marine habitat. It can grow close to the seashore or sometimes directly on the continental shelf. And when they are growing on the continental shelf, naturally they are receiving sunlight at a variable rate, which is obvious. Because you see, when the sunlight is percolating, the upper algae or the blue-green algae as it is called commonly will receive more light, and that will actually appear blue-green in color. But sometimes which are growing deep below in the continental shelf will not receive blue-green or blue light. It will receive red light, and naturally they will reflect red light and will appear red. So the same algal species growing at different depth of the particular continental shelf will have differential color. And this is what is called Gaidukov's phenomenon. And you know, the particular cyanobacteria can also grow in different other habitat. It can grow in hot spring. Cyanobacteria can endure high temperature because it is having an external gelatinous sheath. It can also grow in snow, and it can endure similarly very low temperature or freezing temperature, and it can even be there in the polar region where other organisms are not commonly growing. And at the same time, as I was telling, that the organism can be unicellular, the organism can be filamentous, the organism can be branched, the organism can be colonial. So there may be Chlorococcus, Gleocapsa, Oscillatoria, Tolipothrix. These are different group of organisms having different variable cell structure. So that way it is marvelous to see the different structural organization of the cyanobacteria. And this particular organism commonly will be originating way back in the Proterozoic period. And if we see that which particular organism has actually given rise to cyanobacteria, there may be some ancient prochlorone-like organism, and this prochlorone is definitely a unicellular photosynthetic prokaryotic organism with chlorophyll A, as it is shown here. But they are having close similarity with bacteria. So it is present very close to Firmicutes or Chlorobi on either side. And definitely they are far from the green algae or plants or other groups of bacteria. But when we consider the phylogenetic tree of cyanobacteria itself, there will be three major lines, namely the Nostoc line, the Trichodesmium, and the Lynchbia. Of course, structural organization tells a different story. It can be unicellular, it can be colonial, it can be filamentous. Now, coming to a very important phenomenon where we would see that cyanobacteria, because it was originating in the Precambrian or in the Proterozoic period, which is around 2.5 billion years ago. So cyanobacteria is considered as one of the most primitive organisms thriving in the Earth's surface. So naturally, there will be a lot of fossil cyanobacteria, like this particular Entophysatis, which is a fossil cyanobacteria, and it has been fossilized because of thick cellulosic cell wall. And at the same time, this particular organism will also be growing in the underwater, in the marine condition. And because the wall is enriched in calcium, there will be definite layers of calcified cyanobacterial fossil, which will actually be of different colors, adding color to the rocks. And these are commonly called stromatolites or oncolites. So definitely we see that cyanobacteria ruled this earth maybe around a period of 2.5 billion years to around 0.5 billion years. But somehow this organism has continued to stay and has remained in this particular world. And definitely it has made life a lot more easy for the aquatic organism, for the simple reason that they can photosynthesize and they can produce food for the aquatic food chain. The most important aspect of classification. Earlier, way back in the 1869, it was Ernst Haeckel who actually described cyanobacteria into 5 different groups. And these groups included the Crucocallis, the Plurocapsalis, the Oscillatorialis, the Nostocallis, and the Stygonematalis. These 5 groups, of course, later on people added new groups. Maybe Rivularia was added, and there were some unassigned cyanobacteria placed in some other groups. But here, for the sake of benefit for our viewers, we will be considering the 5 major groups of cyanobacteria. And we will start with the first one, that is the Crucocallis, which is unicellular cyanobacteria. This particular cyanobacteria, as you can see, is formed of oval or round cells, which may be 2 to 8 in number. They may be sometimes rod also, rod-shaped, and they are not having, you can see here, definite membrane-bound organelles. But what is important, that this particular organism is having a very thick outer gelatinous sheath, which is protecting from diverse or adverse condition. And this particular organism will join to each other, producing a colonial setup. And at the same time, it is very much indicative from this figure that they will reproduce by simple direct division or amitosis. Now the next group, which is Plurocapsalis, or example being Plurocapsa, is a simple nitrogen fixing unicellular group of organisms, but this particular cell may divide in both the planes, in horizontal plane, in vertical plane, and will produce a colony. And this colony will develop into a tier system, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers. And these tiers of cells will be closely adhered to each other, which will definitely give them a colonial setup. But at the same time, they are having the power of nitrogen fixation. This particular cell of Plurocapsa is having an outer wall. The outer wall is the cell wall, which is divisible into a surface layer which is fibrous, followed by the lipopolysaccharide, followed by the peptidoglycan. This peptidoglycan layer is same as that of bacteria as it is shown here. And there will be layers of chloroplast or layers of chlorophyll containing lamellae, which will be following the cell wall and will enclose the central DNA or central nucleoid or the genophore region. This group of cyanobacteria is having a unique pigment or unique compound called cytonemin, which is named after the organism from where it was discovered, namely Cytonema. And this is the chemical structure of Cytonema, and this is the absorption spectra, which is seen that it is absorbing maximum in the UVA region. And this group of cyanobacteria can actually flourish in presence of green light, or it can also flourish in presence of UV light. Because of its absorbance, you can see that clearly it is flourishing in presence of UV. So naturally, this particular organism can survive in this era where UV light is very high, where global warming is a problem. So we can say that the cyanobacteria originated before us, they are thriving with us, and maybe they will thrive, they will continue to stay in this world when we will not be there. Now this group of organism is reproducing asexually by producing some unique endospores. Why it is called endospore? Because the spores are produced inside the cell, and these spores you can see here, it can be exhibited by Stenaria, Pleurocepsa, Dermocarpella. So different groups of these endospores are produced, and these endospores are round or oval, or sometimes they may be of different shapes. As it is seen in pedomicrobium, they may be having some lamellated projection. So this particular endospores are called biocytes. They are unique reproductive structure, and this is the actual view of the biocytes. It is green in nature because of the presence of chlorophyll A, and it is found in Pleurocepsa. Now coming to the next group, which is the Oscillatoria or Oscillatorialis. This is a typical filamentous cyanobacteria. Now this filamentous cyanobacteria can be very long. It is forming a unique dense mesh. This particular cells, if we consider, if we see it under microscope, they will appear as rectangular cells. These rectangular cells will have definite chloroplastid within them. So definite pigmented centers within them. And they are also having a unique storage in the form of butyl hydroxyl toluene. So they are also storing lipid in the same way like bacteria do. But this name Oscillatoria comes from a unique pigment, which is actually, it is a protein which is called oscillin. Now why it is called oscillin? Because it is oscillating in the water current. It is the trichome, as it is called, the filament is called the trichome, which will oscillate in water current because of the presence of this oscillating protein oscillin, as a result of which this group is called Oscillatorialis. Now coming to their reproduction, the reproduction of Oscillatoria is very simple. You see, if it is a filament, the filament will break, and the broken filament, the broken fragment will produce a new plant body. Very simple. But the question arises that where this particular breakage will occur. And this is actually, you can see in this filament some open area. This open area will actually allow the filament to break, and they are commonly, the broken new filaments are called the hormogones. And the areas where they are produced, the hormogones are produced, are commonly called the dead cell area, as you can see here under powerful electron microscope. These are called the necridia, or the cell having necrosis, or the cell which is dying. So that dead cell or the necridia will break and will allow a new filament to be separated from the parent Oscillatoria filament. Now coming to the next group, which is the common Nostocalis. Now whenever we say cyanobacteria, which is nitrogen fixing, which is important as biofertilizer, we immediately call out two names, which is nostoc and anabina. This Nostocalis, ideal example is nostoc and anabina, and they are commonly, you can see, they are having filaments. But the most unique thing is that the filaments are not having cells of similar type. Some of the cells may be round or oval or bigger, or may have some thicker wall. This group of organism is unique. They can survive freely, free living organism in nature, or sometimes they can survive as endophyte. As you know, there are some organism grown in the paddy field. This organism is Azolla, which is a pteridophyte. It is a higher plant. Inside the pteridophyte, this Anabina azoli, the colonies of Anabaena azole, as you can see in this photograph, is growing. So this particular Anabaena is actually fixing atmospheric nitrogen, and as a result of which the paddy field is getting enriched with nitrogen, and so the organism can thrive better because the nitrogen will be supplied to the paddy plant. At the same time, this nostoc filament can also be growing in the root of higher plants. Like there is a very common plant called the cycas. In the cycas root, the cells are modified in such a way that the root becomes coiled, and this particular coiled root is commonly called coralloid root, and the organism or organizational complex is called corallorhiza. Now this is a typical nostoc filament. You can see the nostoc filament is having vegetative cell and some thick-walled cells which are responsible for nitrogen fixation, and they are commonly called heterocyst. But very strange, this heterocyst, you can see the color difference. So this heterocyst will be having low density of chlorophyll, so they need food supply. So there must be some typical cells bordering or flanking the heterocyst, which are commonly called the akinets, and these akinets will be supplying sugar to the heterocysts so that they can also survive. As you know, I have already told you that the heterocyst is having very low photosynthetic rate. And this particular organism, I told you, will be dividing again by fission or fragmentation. That is, a filament will be breaking and the filament will produce a new organism. But one important thing is that sometimes the filament of the members of Nostocalis may show branching. If the branching is having filamentous continuity, it is called true branching. If it is not there, then it is commonly called false branching. But majority of the nostoc filaments, they do exhibit true branching, and the false branching will be exhibited by the next group, which is commonly called the Stegonematalis. This Stegonematalis, as I have told you, is also a filamentous organism and will be having typical continuity. So here in Stegonema, there is definitely true branching. You can see that the particular filament is here and the filament has produced branch, but there is cellular continuity, as you can see here. But it is not there in Scitonema. Scitonema, it is having only the sheath continuity. So naturally, we say that it is false branching. And at the same time, these branches, they may get separated from the parent plant, which will produce a new particular plant body. Now, we come to the cell structure of cyanobacteria. In this particular lecture, I shall be considering the different protective layers. At the same time, I shall also consider different other aspects like the chloroplast. I shall also consider the ribosomes or the protein synthetic machinery of cyanobacteria. Now, as I told you that cyanobacteria will be having protective layers which is multi-layered. The outermost protective layer is the gelatinous sheath, and this particular sheath is actually maybe formed of cellulose or cellulosic compound, and this sheath is giving protection, and there may be different components like homoglucan, it may be pectin, it may be galacturonic acid, different forms of cellulose. Sometimes in Anabaena, glucose is to xylose, ratio is 8:1, or sometimes uronic acid is to glucose, is to xylose, is to ribose, is 10:6:1:1. So what does it indicate? It indicates that the gelatinous sheath is not homogeneous, it can be heterogeneous. But though it is heterogeneous, the compounds have a definite function. They are providing protection and they are helping the organism to survive during unfavorable condition. Now coming to the cell wall. The cell wall, as I told you, is having definitely the surface layer, and there will be the next layer which is the lipopolysaccharide layer, and the last one is the peptidoglycan layer. Now the peptidoglycan layer is definitely well differentiated, and this peptidoglycan layer may be formed of sugar and peptide like in other bacteria. So there may be up to 10 to 35 nanometer thick, or sometimes they may constitute maybe 50 to 65% of the dry weight of the cell. But apparently when we compare the cell wall structure of cyanobacteria, the cell wall structure of gram-negative bacteria comes to our mind. We can see in this particular slide that cyanobacteria and gram-negative bacteria, they have the same cell wall structure. What is that? There will be an external wall, then there will be an intermediate peptidoglycan and the inner membrane. This three-layer structure is very common in cyanobacteria. But what is important, that they are not having all the components. There may be mesodiaminopimelic acid or L-lysine which is absent. But both the components are present in Anabaena, which indicate that Anabaena may be close to gram-negative bacteria. Now coming to the lipopolysaccharide layer. The lipopolysaccharide layer is actually a very important component present on the peptidoglycan, the outer part of the peptidoglycan. It is formed of lipid and polysaccharide, and apparently it may look the same as that of gram-negative bacteria, giving protection. But usually cyanobacteria is non-pathogenic, so the toxin component is not there. So what is not there? It is commonly the phosphate, which is very little in cyanobacterial lipopolysaccharide. The lipopolysaccharide layer apparently is same as normal gram-negative bacteria, but it is not so. There may be some components which are absent or maybe little, like there will be no KDO present in cyanobacteria and the phosphate amount may be less. But at the same time, they are having O antigen. This O antigen will not act as a toxin, but rather it will act as a receptor point for certain cyanophage, which is a viral particle which is attacking and destroying the cyanobacterial cell. And at the same time, the membrane will also be having protein channel called porine. This porine channel is also present in bacteria. So it is also present in cyanobacteria, which indicates some homology. And this protein is having about 50 to 70 kDa molecular weight, which is higher than normal gram-negative bacteria, where it is only 30 to 40 kDa. Now coming to the function, of course, the function as it is indicated in the cell wall is protection. It is providing definite shape. It is allowing the particular receptor points for certain molecules to come in, or even some viral particles attachment. And at the same time, it is a storehouse of different polysaccharide. At the same time, because the inner membrane is a part of the protective layer, this inner membrane will also produce some membrane-bound organelles to some extent that it will also produce some photosynthetic organelles. Coming to the cytosol, of course, you can see that this particular cytosol is having layers of photosynthetic lamellae followed by the central granular region, which is the genophore region. And this dark stained body indicate that the nuclear body is dispersed in nature. And coming to the photosynthetic organelle, which is commonly called the phycobilysomes, because it is having pigments called phycocyanin, phycoerythrin, which is blue-green and red in color, and also the allophycocyanin, which is close to phycocyanin, and at the same time it is having chlorophyll A. So it is a complex pigment system which is housed within the phycobilysomes, which indicate that they are having greater absorption. If chlorophyll is having limited absorption, phycobilin will have a greater absorption. So more light absorbed, more will be the photosynthetic output. Now coming to another important organelle, which is commonly called the carboxysome. This carboxysome are dense granular substances, but actually they are the membrane-bound organelles which will have the dark photosynthetic enzymes present or responsible for sugar synthesis. There will be the ribosomes, which are non-membranous in nature. These ribosomes are same as common bacterial ribosome, that is, it is having 70S, where the two components are 50S and 30S, with the individual component of 23S, 16S and 5S, having molecular weight varying between 120 to 2900, and they are definitely helping the organism by synthesizing protein. Sometimes if they absorb more nitrogen, they are definitely given to the other organisms where they are having some symbiotic relationship. And the last organelle is the gas vacuole. The cyanobacterial cell is having some discrete areas which are filled with gases, and these gases make the body light. So I told you that these organisms is without any flagella. So these organisms can actually survive by floating with the help of these vacuoles. Not only that, it will also help the organism against intense sunlight, acting as a screen. So in this particular lecture, we have discussed the different aspects of cyanobacteria. We have discussed their origin, we have discussed their cellular structure, we have discussed their classification, and we have also discussed their habitat, and we will continue this particular structural aspect in the next lecture.